to the presentation. Quick webinar here. We're going to be talking about our brand new significant precious metals discovery that we've made here in Arizona. Very exciting times. We're happy to share it with you. So I think we'll get straight into it. There'll be a bit of history of the company that most people on the webinar are quite familiar with already. And so I'll get straight into the discovery and then we'll save Q&A at the back end. For me personally, this is probably the most significant precious metals discovery in, I think, the lower 48 states of the US in probably the last 2 decades. And I'm pretty happy to show you how and why I think that and how we got here. So just quickly, our phase 2 RC drilling program began in February, March this year, completed in late May, and we're reporting on the first half of these results here today. We're following up on the discoveries made of both the precious metals and also the gallium that we made in 2023. Just a reminder, that program was testing more shallow oxide and smaller sort of play. Within those results, we saw something that was far more interesting, a little bit deeper. And so this program was more pitched to understanding what was going on. And we think we've cracked the code here. And so we're quite shallow in this system, oxidized at sort of 20 meters, a transition of 40 meters, and we're sort of into the sulfides at 60. That's really exciting, this mesothermal unit. It's a big, big system. These mesothermal style properties are usually very prevalent and then very consistent in their mineralization. And we think we're just clipping the top of it. So it's open in strike, at depth, laterally. It's open in all 3 directions, and we've got no idea how big this thing can be. It's significant. So the discovery hole, one of many in this drilling, was probably GRC22. So looking at 47 odd meters at 2 gold, 40 silver, and some zinc. And so this would be almost true width. We get through a plan view on the cross sections as we get into more of a discussion. But just to show that this is also very consistent, we see among the holes between here, 21, and it kind of also is supported by GRC03 from our first drilling in 2023. So there's a high grade section here, almost 17 meters at 5 grams gold and 100 silver and 0.5% zinc. And that's at around 191 to end of hole. So 4 of these 14 holes are ending in mineralization, about 1 gram to 2 grams. And so again, we believe we're clipping the top of this thing, and there's probably a lot of vertical extent to it, including laterally. This is GRC21. We don't have a section on this. This is drilled from the same pad as 22. We just turn the rig around a little bit, and it's a bit more southwest. Nice big intersection of almost 1 gram gold and 11 silver, very consistent. We hit the higher grade portion of this hole, 7.6 meters at 5.5 gold and 32.5 silver, from a similar 205 meter mark. So not far from where we saw the same mineralization in hole 22. Okay. And then a higher grade part at the bottom there, 6 meters at 1.1 and 8 silver from 256 to the end. Most importantly, this is drilled from the same pad and intersected the same mineralization, similar grades, 60 meters to the southeast, still in mineralization. We talked to GRC03 later on, but GRC03 was probably another 50 meters further southwest of these holes, and we kind of track it, the mineralization, over roughly 150 meters. And that gives us a level of comfort. There's a broad, consistent sort of structure there that we're targeting and that we seem to be hitting consistently. Now, GRC17 is probably is one of the most southern holes we drilled. And this is a full 700 meters away from the GRC21 and 22 that we just referenced. We're looking here at 97.5 meters at 0.3 gold, 4.8 silver, and almost 1% zinc. Now, we're testing something different here, and you'll see in the plan view, we've got a main Golconda structure, which hosted most of the historical mining here in the district. It comes in and meets the main tub structure that runs through the property. And we're trying to get in between those to understand the complexity and what was driving mineralization, especially down deeper where these 2 main structures meet. We kind of clipped one and missed the other. And so it's really interesting, the results. I kind of show you here, just as we get through the hole, and it's quite unique with this property, especially at Golconda. We hit the 0.3 gold, relatively shallow at 172 meters, the silver and the zinc. Then, the better part of 40, 50 meters further down, you started a decent intersection of 0.4 gold and 4 silver and zinc. And then another sort of 30, 40 meters further down, you get another 9 meters at 0.8 gold, 9.7 silver and 2% zinc. Unusually, as we step through deeper, gold grades picking up. Okay. And we see this through all of our drilling on the property, that the deeper we go, we start to see the consistency of grade picking up. And then also there's a very strong relationship by the amount of gold we see in the system and its relationship to the silver. And so usually it's a 10-to-1, almost 5-to-1 relationship. 1 to 2 grams gold, you'll see 10 to 20 grams silver, very consistent. Okay. This is really important because this now starts to point to the volume that we have here, and it starts to add tons and then minerals very quickly. Okay. Easily explained by the unit that we have. Okay. And we'll get to that when we get to the cross sections. Not to be forgotten is the gallium here. Okay. And we've always said that the gallium here is very important part of this system. At the moment, we would perceive it to sitting in probably the rock, the waste rock. We have to form an opinion on it. It is so consistent in the kaolinite and the altered rock and alteration around the sulfides and the precious metals. It's literally everywhere. Now, in our first drilling, it was more than a passing interest, the consistency of both intercepts and grade from the north through to the south. But we hadn't picked it up fully further south. And what we've done here, 13 and 14 was drilled at the northern end of our property, okay, getting the 200 odd meters at 17 to 20 grams, okay, from surface effectively to end of hole. GRC 17 and 15 were at the other end of the property. So GRC 15 was a full kilometre away, and is still looking at similar 200 meters at 20 odd grams gallium from surface, end of hole. Okay. So now we're tracking a full 200 meters of gallium. We run a 10-gram cutoff, and so we can make it hang together for the full 200 meters of intercept over a kilometer. And in these big lithocaps that come with the porphyries, this is effectively what you would want to see. Okay. Consistency across a broad volume of intercepts, and that gives us our volume of our tons here. So 3,000 to 4,000 gram meter intercepts, very consistent through the whole property, lots of it, and we expect to find more. High level, just getting into the model that we were testing. And so just looking here, here's the Golconda claims boundary. This main structure here it runs for the better part of 20 kilometers. And you'll notice that all the main producing mines in the area all sit on or offset this main structure. We've got 3 kilometers of strike on our property alone, and this is what's really driving us, the controls to the mineralization at Golconda for us and the precious metals. Really important to understand this. There's a metal zonation here that we see, copper moly porphyry with lots of silver here in the middle. This is the Mineral Park mine that's back into production now via a private equity group out of Canada. The Tennessee mine was a historical zinc-lead gold-silver producer, and the Golconda was exactly the same. Just a reminder, Golconda stopped producing back in 1917, and it's been stuck in this time capsule until we've come back in here and started to rework it. So we've got a big porphyry system, big structural control, and then now we're just drilling it out. Now, just to close the knowledge gap a little bit here, now, what we see, and with any luck, you can see my cursor. At the top here, in a generalized porphyry, you get this quartz kaolinite. This is the lithocap at surface, pretty general. This is what we would be where our gallium sits in this big lithocap at surface that we have on the top of our property. Our new understanding now with the recent drilling is proving up that we think we have something like this in the mesothermal unit at Golconda. So in a porphyry, the mesothermal unit basically is just, we're closer to the source, we're closer to the heat. So the mineralization, when it's formed, it's dropped out a bit sooner and it's more consistent. Up here, you get more of the epithermal part of the system. And so you get usually lower grades, but broader halo of it. This was our original target at Golconda, knowing that we're in the mesothermal unit here, which is very exciting. But we kind of thought it was more of a lower grade, but more consistent, smaller setup. Our thinking's changed now with the drilling today. And so we've got very broad, consistent intercepts of the precious metals. And we think we can make it carry across strike, laterally, and with depth. So we're in a porphyry, we know that. The mesothermal unit just points to temperature. So epithermal is usually 100 degrees. So when it's formed, the minerals have come out and dropped out at a lower temperature. When you're closer to source and closer to the heat, the mineralization drops out, it's more consistent. Just to show here, in this generalized model, you'll get an idea of size and scale. These things here usually are about a kilometer as a generic normal distribution of size for these units. They're quite big, very consistent vertically, and that's where you get your sort of the ounces per vertical meter. And this is what we think we're seeing at Golconda. We're clipping the top. We think we've got 800 meters below minimum to sort of target. We're pretty confident that there's another 200 or 300 meters of mineralization, because I'll show you with Golconda, it was developed down to the 425 meter level, and gold and silver grades were getting better the deeper they went too. So this is a historical shot of the early 1900s of the mine, some early shallow drilling in the 80s. Odessa, a little company, did some work. They were getting some really interesting sort of 10.5, 11 meters at 1.8 gold, 39 silver. Pretty consistent, but in 2003, this is probably not passing muster for size and scale. In 2023, we were drilling to follow up. We did succeed in finding higher grade and made 2 discoveries, GRC06 with gold and silver. That was more in the green Lynette vein. And then we've got the broad gallium mineralization that came with it. But GRC03 hit 11 meters at 1.2 gold, 400 silver, 0.3 copper, and 0.5 zinc from 61. And 61 is pretty instructive. That's roughly where we transition. We get from oxides, transition material, then into the sulfides proper. That was in and around historical workings as well. And so the old timers took the better material. But since 2023, gold price has doubled. Silver price looks like it's on its way to doubling. And we've got a big mineralized system here. I'm just going to talk to A, B, and C. We'll start in the north at A and work our way down. Just mostly to show here, the green was the drilling from 2023. The blue is the drilling from 2025. And today we're talking about the darker blues, where we've got the assays received. And all of these here, where we've closed up the spacing, they're all due back over the next 2 to 4 weeks. What you'd want to see here in these systems, big structural control. So this, pale pastel green is that big structure that runs through the 20 kilometers, okay? You can kind of see this rhyolite dike that's come through. It's been smashed and offset. So this is, something that's gone on here structurally. We're in a mesothermal unit. Traditionally, they start at 1 to 2 kilometers deep. Uniquely here, between the upthrusting and the formation of the mountain range and the erosion at surface, a lot of that epithermal has disappeared. So mesothermal units provide probably 70% of all copper and gold production in the world. Okay, so it's just a way of explaining, the temperature of the rock. And then, orogenic gold in WA, they're all mesothermal units, the super pit. The equivalent in Canada would be Abitibi, and then you've got a lot more through South America, clearly. But with this, so that's the main structure and control. We know we're very close to the top of that mesothermal unit. And then you've got a lot of this stockwork veining, on the width here, laterally, you've got up to 500 meters at surface. This all sticks out of the ground. You can see it when you walk the property. The green Lynette vein is a mine down here. The Mexican had a small scratching here. It's mineralized. And then, our tub zone that we're targeting, and then this footwall zone, and then down through this orange bit would be the broader target for us going forward. So let's get stuck into it, and I'll show you where we get to. So here's a cross section of A prime, GRC22. So there's your 47 meters, 2 grams gold, 40 silver, ending in mineralization. We get it inside the tub structure. We get it in the footwall, and then at end of hole, we don't know how far it goes down. Gallium in the same hole sits in the kaolinite, the mica, the more, the silicate part. And so you'll get gallium and the precious metals in the same hole sit in a different mineral species. And so that was the point of our announcement 4 weeks ago, talking about the gallium. We've nailed the mineralogy down, the mineral species. It's more in the silicates, not the sulfides. That's a huge sigh of relief, because that gives us then a pathway to then preferentially recovering the gallium is our plan. But the precious metals will be 80, 90% of the value here. The gallium comes along for the ride. So not dissimilar to, say, Perpetua in the US, where the gold carries the value of their project, the antimony comes with it. Similar ways is how we see the gold, silver, and the gallium coming along here at Golconda. And so, the second hole, GRC21, as we spoke to, and then here's GRC03. We drilled down dip, and that was mostly because we couldn't collar above it and drill back this way. So we sort of collared in the tub and drilled down dip, and that's where we got those results. But those 3 holes give us that consistency of mineralization over the 110 meters. Okay, that's just in this northern end of the property. This bottom here, the Golconda mine working is really important. So that's the 425-meter level. So in 1917, they're working hand. Gold, silver grades were picking up at depth, and then I'll give you a bit of an insight into what that looked like as well. So we move down towards keep moving south now down the project. BB prime is GRC24. So you've got this lateral extent of the Greenland and the Mexican veins. Oh, let me just show you on that cross section here. The Mexican veins at surface, these are rock chips taken in situ, not soil sampling. So the channel, we're running 0.14 gold, 280 silver, 1.3 gold, and 26 silver. So it gives us a level of comfort that we're going to get the more lateral, these things should be mineralized. And then they're all structurally dipping 50 odd degrees back into the side of the mountain. There's no reason why we can't pick this up either as separate splays off the main tub structure, or if they've been sourced from the tub and splayed off, or they're their own structures for depth. But this gives us a lot of volume pretty quick, and that's what we're excited about. You would see that in these normal sort of systems. That's pretty standard. That's what you'd want to see. So here's GRC24, again, setting up topography, also got against us here. So we try to drill, would rather be a bit more, this way to the north-northeast and drilling this way. But we collared just on the top here to make sure we could prove that tracking back down through through strike, that we're picking up the tub still mineralized. It clearly is. So, big consistent gallium, and then where you get the tub in the footwall, and then through to the other side. And we haven't even got, we don't even know what's going on down here deeper, but that's, really handy. 26 meters, 0.2 gold almost, 32 and a bit silver, 1.6 zinc, with the higher grade component in there as well. So that offers a lot of depth extension. Golconda vein, this is literally where it's developed down to. This is at 425 meters. There's reported 13-gram gold and 300 plus grams silver. So gives us a bit more support to the view that the further down we go in depth, gold grades and silver grades are picking up, and that 13 to 300 starts to give you that, the 10x sort of relationship, very consistent the further we go. And so there's a lot more to go. This is now the southern end of the property. This is where the Golconda comes back into the tub, and you get a lot of structural sort of complexity. And what we're trying to drill in between the two, just to try and understand what's going on. This is the most south and the deepest hole anyone's drilled down at this part of the project. Okay, again, the consistency of the gallium that you'd see in this orangey alteration bit, that's where you'd like to see most of the gallium. Again, we see it. This would be most where the gallium sits, the halo in and around the precious metals and the sulfides. So base of oxidation, roughly 60 meters. It's very consistent through the property. It's more like 20, bit of transition, and then boom, straight into sulfides. The logging, you can see it in the logs of every hole, very consistent. Sniffing some gold in and around this base of oxidation, and you start to see the silver and the zinc kicking, and then the further you go, then things start to pick up, and then end of hole. So this is almost 100 meters. Okay, very consistent end of hole. This is really exciting. So it points to the complexity. Again, nowhere near the bottom. The drilling was always set up to test the limit of the rig to get down through. Normally, you wouldn't clearly stop while you're in mineralized envelope of what we're seeing, but we have to come back here with a core rig really, and then test this properly. But, this is, really exciting for us. So this gives us our 700 meters of strike with clearly a lot more to go. So, that's kind of this is what's given us the excitement, and we're really happy to talk about the size and scale of this thing because of the consistency of the mineralization, the intersections. It's broad, open 3 directions, and you start to get some pretty big volume pretty quick. The precious metals will be the value proposition, and then that still gives us the opportunity to work with the gallium that comes alongside. We've formed an opinion. The gallium is very important. It's afforded us a lot of conversations with a lot of people, downstream partnering groups, defense, and so on. And so, being behind the tent, so to speak, being in North America, and being in in the US and in Arizona especially. It's a lot of excitement is building for precious metals and strategic metals projects. Just to point to some upside potential here, I know there's a prominent newsletter writer on Sunday wrote a note. He's kind of said, pretty simply, maybe we're at 500,000 ounces of gold here. He doesn't talk about the silver. We don't talk about the rest of the product here. I think he's probably underdone us by about 1.5 million ounces personally, and probably 4.5 million ounces. We're only talking about the 700 meters of strike between A and C. Okay, the Golden Eagle mine up here is a gold silver mine, and we would predict, and the model that we would try and sort of execute against is, we would argue that this whole zone all the way through up here is mineralized similarly, and that consistency, which is what you'd expect to see in these systems. So that adds another 700 meters of strike. Okay. And then we haven't tested this, lateral extent, getting out through the Greenland and the Mexican. There's a huge opportunity. At a minimum, if we've got 11.5 million tons, 12 million tons of rock here with that 500,000 ounces, we only have to show one or two deeper holes, get down below 21 and 22 to show that grade does pick up and that envelope is deeper down to a minimum where that Golconda zone is. And you're looking at a 4 or 5x on those resources already, or potential resources already. So we're really excited. The model, we probably were looking we're looking for more shallow, disseminated, lower grade opportunity in our first drilling. But now this has really got us focused on just the size and scale and the elephant that we have here in the room. So, that's basically my 20-minute pitch on just updating everyone where we're at. The size and scale of the opportunity, this is everything we thought we had when we first started working the project a few years ago. But with the nature of just drilling and the data that we get and the model that we've updated with, there's just a lot more work to be done, but really exciting times. And like I said, I think we've got an elephant by the tail here. Not many smaller companies would get the opportunity to drill a project like this. Not everyone just gets to walk in and drill a big porphyry with mineralization so close to surface. This would ordinarily be more towards a porphyry in Argentina, a Chile, and so on. You're looking at 500 meters to a kilometer before you even get to the mineralized envelope, and we're at 60 meters and we're clipping the top of it. So it's really punchy. This is everything you live for. If I get one of these in my career, then I'm happy. I haven't even talked about white caps, but basically white caps, the origin and the DNA of a white caps is similar to a Golconda, different mineralogy, different setting, different geology, but similar time, stuck in a time capsule behind. That's about 18 months behind where we are here. So I think personally, we've got two elephants in the room, and it's pretty punchy stuff. We're getting more engagement with North American investors, North American brokers especially. MP Materials announcement last week was really instructive, more on the commitment by government to invest in US-based projects. I know Canada and Australia are viewed as US domestic supply, but there's a very strong focus on investing in US-based projects especially. And so we're really excited. So what I think I might do is just stop sharing here and maybe open up, see if there's any questions.